How's it going? I'm going to go over the 101s of resume writing and creation here. We will just briefly walk through some of the basics of writing a resume and beginning a resume. And I will show you my resume as an example of what the final product can look like. So when we spend time working on our resumes, it will end up being a pretty serious part of this course because it's an assignment that has a great deal of real world value. And I expect all of you to put a good deal of effort into your resumes, your cover letters, and your overall job packet application materials. So the resume is, of course, the place to begin. Some of you may already have a resume that you are working with, and that's great. I look forward to reading them. However, it's very likely that I will ask you to adjust or edit or change your resume in some way, um, not just based on my own sort of perception of what a good resume looks like, but also uh, because I think that there are ways to improve our resumes to make them easier to read, easier to write, frankly, and also more effective when it comes to applying for jobs. So let's get right into this. What I always do first is I put my name. Of course, you'll want to do that. I like to use the header of the page so that if I happen to have 2 pages of resume material, that my header will spill over into the second page. And that's one of the tools or one of the ways that header footer will work as a tool for you. So I always center it. I like to have my name right at the top. And then I'll put my address. In this case, I'll just put a fake address. And I don't know the zip code to Augusta off the top of my head, so I'll just put a fake one. So I will also put my email. And so in this case, I'll put my personal email. Make sure that your email is professional. I mean, I think you want to rethink your email if you look at it and it's something that is fairly old or also a little perhaps improper, depending on what your email is. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Creating a new email is very easy, so I encourage you to do so if your email is not up to date. I will also put my phone number. Again, I'll just make this up, just so that the person who is reading this will always have direct contact to me. I like to make my name a little bigger, so let's load it to 18. We'll make it bold. That's it for this part of it. So I always like to put this in the header again so that it's nice and clean, stays the center. And if there's a spillover page on number 2, then it will carry over, basically. So your first sort of move when it comes to creating your resume should be to think about how you want to organize this. So I'm going to go start with work experience. That'll be my first header here. Then I will put, let's see, education, and I'll put volunteer experience. So there are many options for how you can frame this resume of yours. My recommendation is to think about the experiences in education and skills that you have that you think are most pertinent to the job you're applying for. Resumes will stay pretty even throughout your application process. By that I mean you don't have to change too much about them for the different jobs you apply for. However, it is a great idea to tailor your application materials for the specific job you are submitting to. And this is particularly true of your cover letter, but it's also, frankly, pretty true of your resume as well. So keep that in mind as you're beginning to craft this. I'm just going to assume that I'm applying for an education-related job or a job in nonprofit, which is where I've worked in the past. So I'm going to include these 3 headers: my work experience. Let's say I'm going to apply for a job that is in the nonprofit field, and so I have experience working in the nonprofit field, so I'll add that. The name of the profit, say yes. So you always want to start by putting the actual name of the place you worked. It could be Hannaford, could be Walmart. If I was going to look back in my resume over many years, I would have Aubuchon Hardware, Hannaford Supermarkets, things like this, right? But because I want to keep this resume short and sweet, I don't want to include everything I've done. I only want to include the most pertinent information that my potential employer will want to see. So you're going to want to include the dates. So let's just September 2015 to say September 2018. So this is a standard sort of practice is to have the dates that you actually worked at your nonprofit, or excuse me, that worked at your previous job or current job. If this is something that's current to you, you can put current or present, right, that you are still employed by them. However, if you left for any reason or you no longer work there, go ahead and put the date that you ended. You want to put the title you had. So I was the executive assistant. And then what you'll start doing is you'll start filling in information here. So what I actually did was manage the calendar of the executive director. So I'm just going to start filling in the actual information that that would speak to the job that I had and what I did for that job. So I'll show you what that looks like as a final product, but just for now, this is an example of what that looks like. You can format, and you should format. You should try different looks. You will see or notice that I am not using a template. I know Microsoft Word has templates for resumes. I find them totally distracting and really unprofessional. I don't mean any offense if that's what you've used. It's just that that's what my eye sees. I like a really simple, really clean resume that relies on content and organization over pizzazz or wow, right? For those of you who are How I Met Your Mother fans, maybe you'll recall Barney Stinson's video resume and how it's all pizzazz and no content, basically. So I like mine to be all content. So I'll just mess around with some of the different possible variations. I kind of like that. Maybe I'll get rid of the bold. Okay, that's clean. I like that. And then maybe here I'll bold this. Just as an example of how you can begin to make your resume stand out a little bit, how you can make it easier to read. Education, so I will likely start with the most recent education I have. So I will say the degree I'm in pursuit of here, English. And I'll just put the dates of completion. So it's August 2014. And I'll keep filling this in until my education is done. You'll see I'm just backspacing here because I put August instead of Aug. You can choose how you want to present the information. One thing you want to make sure you're doing is being consistent throughout your resume. So make sure that whenever you make a decision, you are using that decision over and over again so that when someone reads your resume, they see consistency in it. So that was, let's see, 2014. And I'll on and on until I get my education section filled in. And again, because I want to be consistent, I want to make sure that all my headers are exactly the same. And maybe to stand out, make these bold. Volunteer experience, that is also going to be uppercase underline. And I'll just start filling in this as well. So this is a very simple resume, of course, but it's also an effective one. I think it's effective because it only asks the reader, the potential employer, to learn about you through the content of your experience, through your background, instead of having some funky fonts or strange qualities of print. One thing to keep in mind is that these resumes will almost always be printed out, and so if you should print your resume first of all to make sure that if it prints out properly, and always avoid using color. You see me going up here to adjust this hyperlink to my email. I'm just going to put it as automatic, and then I'll remove the underline. So that if someone was to print this out, it would print out in black and white. You never know if someone has a black and white printer or a color printer. You don't know what they're going to be printing on. So the easier your resume is to print, the easier your resume is to read, the more likely your potential employer is to keep it on the table, keep you in the running, and keep it out of the trash. So this is what this could look like, or what it will look like, and what it has looked like in the past. For my own resume, this is my real resume that I use, and it's one that I have received offers or job offers from, and it's only one page long, as you can see. I've stuck to some pretty simple information. I've not tried to make anything outrageously challenging to read, and my content is all there, and yet I'm able to fit it onto one single page. As you can see, this is one aspect, references available upon request, that you can choose to include or not to include. It depends on what you want to do or what the requests are from the job you're applying for in terms of your references. I like to put it on there just in case I submit this sort of blind. But this is what it looks like. This is what a simple, effective resume looks like. In the end, it's one that works and one that is very easy to replicate. So keep this in mind, and feel free to send me questions if you have any when it comes to resume writing. I do it relatively often. I am always updating my own resume, and I look forward to reading yours.